There are people who have been swallowed by a tornado and lived to describe what they saw inside. And what they described was not destruction, it was silence. A hollow column of sky, open at the top, almost beautiful. But here is what nobody tells you about that moment. The physics surrounding that calm center would have already started killing you before you ever saw it. Most people imagine that surviving inside a tornado means finding the eye and staying there. Like a hurricane, right? Find the calm center and you are safe. That idea sounds reasonable. It might even save your life in a hurricane. But a tornado is not a hurricane. The geometry is different, the speeds are different, and the pressure gradients involved operate on a scale so extreme and so localized that your body would become part of the physics experiment whether you consented or not. Let us talk about what a tornado actually is from the inside out, because understanding the structure is the only way to understand why survival there borders on the physically impossible. A tornado's core, sometimes called the inner core or condensation funnel, is a region of dramatically low atmospheric pressure. We're talking about pressure drops of up to 100 millibars within just a few dozen meters of horizontal distance. To put that into perspective, the pressure difference between sea level and the summit of Mount Everest is about 330 millibars. A violent tornado can produce nearly one-third of that pressure drop across a distance you could sprint in under 10 seconds. Now here is where your biology becomes the enemy. The human body is pressurized. Your lungs, your sinuses, your ears, your intestines, all of them contain gas at roughly ambient atmospheric pressure. When the external pressure drops suddenly and violently, the gas inside you expands. Your eardrums rupture. Your sinuses can crack. In extreme pressure differentials, the air inside your lungs can actually cause barotrauma, tearing delicate tissue as it tries to equalize. You would not feel calm in the eye. You would feel like you were being turned inside out. And before you even reach that low-pressure core, you would have to survive the wall of wind surrounding it. The most violent tornadoes, classified as EF5 events on the enhanced Fujita scale, produce winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. That is not wind you lean into. That is wind that reduces reinforced concrete to rubble. At those speeds, a single piece of gravel becomes a projectile with the kinetic energy of a small caliber bullet. Researchers at Texas Tech University documented 2x4 wooden boards driven completely through steel I-beams during EF5 events. Your body, soft tissue, and hollow bones would not receive special treatment from the laws of kinetic energy. But let us say, hypothetically, that you somehow made it through the debris field. You are now standing inside the condensation funnel. You are in what tornado survivors have described as the eye. What would you actually experience? And this is the part that genuinely fascinates atmospheric scientists. Survivors, admittedly a very small number across recorded history, have described a rotating wall of debris around them, sometimes with visible flashes of lightning inside the funnel itself. The interior can be dimly lit by daylight filtering down through the open top. The sound, people consistently describe it as a deep, resonant roar, sometimes compared to dozens of freight trains, but with an almost musical quality to the resonance inside the funnel structure. Here is where we want you to hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. We go deep into the physics of extreme phenomena every single week, and this is exactly the kind of content that gets buried by the algorithm unless you are subscribed and have notifications turned on. Hit subscribe now and stay with us, because it gets stranger. The rotation inside the funnel is not uniform. There are actually multiple vortices called suction vortices rotating inside the larger parent tornado. Think of smaller tornadoes orbiting inside the big one. These suction vortices are often responsible for the most extreme damage because they concentrate wind speeds even further. If you were standing in the relative calm between suction vortices, stepping even a few meters in the wrong direction could put you directly into winds that dramatically exceed the average tornado wind speed. You would not see them coming. The visual boundary is not clear. Then there is the thermodynamic reality of what that air is doing. The air inside a tornado is not just spinning, it is also rising violently. Updrafts inside the most powerful tornadoes can exceed 150 kilometers per hour vertically. You would not stand on the ground inside the eye. The ground itself would be contributing to the problem, because the surface winds racing inward toward the low-pressure center would be hitting you horizontally at the same time the updraft was pulling you vertically. You would be stretched between competing force vectors simultaneously. Atmospheric scientists use the term vortex chamber to describe the interior flow dynamics, and the mathematics of that chamber are essentially a description of catastrophic mechanical failure applied to anything organic. So what would it take to theoretically survive inside a tornado? You would need a pressure-equalized suit, something approaching what deep-sea divers or high-altitude pilots use, capable of maintaining internal pressure independent of the external environment. You would need it to be aerodynamically stable enough to not become a sail in 300 km/h wind. It would need to protect against debris impacts at ballistic velocities. And you would need to solve the vertical updraft problem, which would require you to be anchored to something, except nothing in the debris path of a tornado remains anchored. The honest answer from physics is that the eye of a tornado is not a sanctuary. It is the geometric center of the most mechanically hostile environment the lower atmosphere can produce. The calm that survivors describe is not safety. It is the eye of the killing machine looking directly at you. Nature is under no obligation to make its most violent moments look violent all the way through. Sometimes the most dangerous place in the universe looks, for just a moment, like open sky. If this video opened up something you had not considered before, share it with someone who thinks they know how tornadoes work. And subscribe right now, because next week we are going inside something even more extreme. You do not want to miss it.